My name is Pamela and I breed British Shorthair cats in Perth, Western Australia. I have a passion for cat breeding and I want to share my information and knowledge with you. If you're new to breeding, this series is designed for you, but if you've been breeding a while, stick around because you might pick up a tip or two. Today I'm in the back room of my house, the back area of my house actually. This is where we have mums and babies and you can probably see some of them running around. Hopefully they're not going to have any fighting or be naughty while we're doing this. But today I wanted to talk to you because I got asked a question just before I left work today, and I was thinking about it in the car when I was driving home, and I thought, well, I can type up an answer to the person who asked me the question, or I could just put my phone on and take a quick video and maybe tell everybody this information. The question that I got asked was, the breeder that contacted me was one of the members of the association that I'm part of, and she was asking me because she's reasonably new, she's not a new breeder, she's a newish breeder, and she got asked by somebody else about could they buy a breeding cat from her, and this is not something she's done before. Sorry if the camera's moving, there's a kitten playing with the tripod. Let me just try and get its attention. Hey, come on, come on, come on, come on. I'll just jiggle this over here. Looks like we've got all the mums and not the kittens. She was asking about that because she's been asked by somebody who wants to buy a breeding cat from her, and she wanted to know what information does she need to know, what does she need to ask them, what does she need to say. So I thought I'd come and make a video just quickly about that for everybody, and maybe it might help a few other people who are going to be in that position as well. The first thing I want to talk to you about is why you should be selling breeding cats. Now, I think a lot of people know this about me. I've been breeding for, it must be 18, 19, and 20 years now. And I have sold very, very few breeding cats in that time. I actually prefer not to. I don't mind doing matings for people with my boys, but I don't like to sell breeding cats, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So you need to have good reasons to be doing it, and there's probably 3 reasons. The first reason is not a good reason, and that's money. Now, breeding cats will sell for a lot more than a pet cat or a pet kitten. They will fetch a higher price, especially if you've got very good lines, you've got good cats behind them, if they've got very good type, if they've got a lot of really good potential. So they will sell for more. And the other thing about breeding cats that's different to pet cats is when you sell a pet cat, depending on where you live, in Australia, I think almost every state in Australia asks for this now, you must sell that cat desexed or with the desexing price included in the cost. So you will have to have that cat desexed and there'll be an expense involved in that. So a pet cat will cost you less money to prepare for it to go to its new owner than a breeding cat will. So there's a bit of like a saving there, if you like. So you're going to make more money off the sale and pay less in expenses. So when you sell a breeding cat, you obviously are making more money. Is that a good reason to be selling a breeding cat? No, it's not. That's not what the hobby's about. If the hobby was about making money, then we'd all be cat farmers and it'd be a different story, but we're not. We're doing this as a hobby. So the second reason, which is a really good reason to sell, there's a kitten playing over here. A really good reason to sell a breeding cat is because you want to help someone. And that's a really good reason to do it. You want to help out someone who needs a breeding cat. Maybe they have a lot of cats that are very related and they need something to outcross to. Maybe they're a new breeder and they're starting out, just like you might be yourself, and maybe they need a cat to get started. Maybe they need 1 or 2 cats to get them started. Maybe there's someone that has suddenly found themselves with an issue, that they've suddenly lost a key cat in their breeding and they need to replace that cat. I can think of the example of a lady who contacted me, I think it was a year or 2 ago now, and she had a couple of breeding girls and then she had a stud cat. So she was all set up, good to go, and she was ready, and it was the beginning of the breeding season. It was British Shorthair, so it was a seasonal breeding cat. And she was all set up and good to go. And she, suddenly her stud cat died. So she had the girl cats, but she didn't have a boy cat anymore. She lived in a regional area and there was no one that she could just pop a couple of suburbs over and use their stud cat. She was stuck. She was in a position that was quite difficult because it would be no point for her buying a kitten and then growing him up to be a stud cat. She needed a stud cat and she needed a mature cat at that particular point in time. So in that situation, that was a time when somebody needed something because something had happened, there were circumstances, and they needed help from somebody else. It wasn't just a matter of, I think I might invest in a new stud cat. It was, I need help or I'm going to be not able to breed my cats. So they're good reasons to do it, to help somebody else out. And the longer you breed, you will become friends with people, you will have people that you trust, people that you'd be willing to do anything for, and these will be the people, as an established breeder, these are the people that you will be helping out. As a new breeder, it can be really hard because you don't have these relationships and you have to sort of find out a little bit more before you go ahead with stuff like that. The last reason to celebrate in cat is because you want something for yourself. There's something in it for you, and there's nothing wrong with that either. It might be the case that somebody has a line that you want and you could not buy it from them, but they may let you have access to that line if you let them have access to something that you have. So there might be something reciprocal there, and there might be something in it for you over and above money. And that's a good reason to celebrate in cat as well. In that situation, I prefer, myself personally, and I alluded to this before, I don't like to celebrate in cat. What I like to do is a mating instead. The reason is that I feel very attached to the cats and kittens that I breed. Oh, stop doing that. My little cinnamon kitten's being naughty. I'm very attached to them, and I want them to have a very good life and a very special life. So there's a lot of times I will be asked by people if I could sell them a breeding cat, and for me I would actually rather that kitten that I've bred go and have a pet life and be someone's bed cat than go and be a stud cat or a breeding cat. But I don't have the same feelings. I do have feelings, but I don't have the same strong feelings when it's somebody else's kittens. So if someone was to come and use my boy, for example, one of my boys, and then have a litter of their own, they get to absolutely choose what they do with those kittens, as long as it meets with what we've agreed. And so I'm quite okay with that in terms of them, they get to choose what's happening with them. So I'm more likely to do a mating, but I might do a mating where it's a reciprocal mating. And I've done that this year actually. There's a breeder had a line that I didn't have of the colour that I'm breeding, and he was interested in a line that I had that of the colour that he was breeding. So I used his boy, and then he used my boy, and we're having a litter each. So that was a way, like a reciprocal way of us both getting something out of that. And even though it wasn't actually selling a breeding cat, it was actually breeding between the two breeders. And that brings me to swaps. When you do something like that, I don't love the idea of a swap arrangement. And you'll hear this a lot in breeding. One of the things I've noticed is that people that want to do swaps, not always, I don't mean to be too judgmental in saying this, people that want to do swaps are often people who don't have the money to pay you. And so they will trade you a kitten instead. The problem with a swap arrangement is that it is never, ever going to be equal because you're not getting the same kitten. One person is always going to feel like they've got the lesser part of the deal. They're always going to feel a little bit like you got the best of they gave you something really good and you didn't give them something really good in return, or vice versa. And there's also the issue that it is almost never the case that I have a 12-week-old kitten and you have a 12-week-old kitten, let's swap them. That's not how it works. It'll be, let's do a swap. Okay, well my kitten's born now, so you can have that one now, and then when you have one, I'll have that. And then that kitten often just doesn't eventuate. And you will hear people say all the time, we were going to do a swap, but she never actually came through with her part of the deal. Or he keeps telling me that he's going to do this mating, but he's never done the mating. And you may actually end up missing out. And I can think of a few people who've been burnt in that way where the person that was going to swap with them still has the cat or kitten that they swapped with them, and they've got nothing out of the deal, and it just is creates resentment and is just a really pretty crappy situation. So I don't love a swap unless it's done between two people who are very familiar with each other and two people who understand fully that they're doing the swap because they want something, each party wants something from the other side, and that they'll accept that it's not balanced and it's not perfect. So it can work, but it has to be between people who really maybe get along really well and who understand that it's not an even deal. And so in that situation, a swap can be something you might want to do. So they're the reasons that you might want to sell a breeding cat. What kinds of things do you need to think about when you are selling a breeding cat? And I've made some notes because I just thought, I'm not really sure where I'm up to, but I thought I'd better cover everything. So you need to find out about the person that wants the cat from you. Some of the things you want to find out for them are, where they live, what kind of conditions they have. Do they have a big house? Do they have a lot of room? Do they have a big family? Do they have a small family? Do they have young kids? Do they have older kids? What other pets do they have? Where is your cat going to go? How are they going to keep your cat? What are they planning to do with your cat? What's the purpose of them needing your cat? What's it going to bring them to, bring into their breeding for them? What else have we got? What association they're with? Are there any specific issues to your breed? For example, in British Shorthairs, blood types are an issue. So whenever I have anybody coming to use one of my boys, I always have to find out, well, what blood type do you have? What blood type are your girls? Are they compatible? What are you going to do going forward if you have the blood type of kitten born that won't be compatible with your other cats, for example? So those are some things that you need to think about. You might want to ask them about other people that they've worked with, other people that they might be dealing with. You wouldn't want to sell a breeding cat to somebody and then find out that they're working very closely with somebody you don't like and you don't want to have your cat. So you need to find out a little bit more information in that way. How do you find stuff like this out? Well, stalk them. Stalk them online. Facebook stalking is really good. You want to check out their website, you want to see if it's up to date, what information's on there. Does that information match what they've told you? Their Facebook page, their personal Facebook page, that's fine. Do they have similar values to you? You might stalk someone on Facebook and find out that, oh, well, I didn't realise that you were really racist and that doesn't really match with me. And maybe that's a reason that you might not want to become associated with them. And that's okay. You might find out that they love unicorns and you do too. So maybe you have something in common there and that's really cute as well. You want to find out if they have their Facebook page for their breeding as well, or if they just post their cats on their own page. You want to have a look and see the condition their cats are in. You want to see the condition that the house is in or the environment that the cats are in. You don't want lots of posed pictures. It's maybe not such a thing over here, but you'll see it in a lot of European catteries that they will have, and it's not a bad thing, it's cute. They'll have, a fluffy blanket and the kitten's in a little basket, or maybe it's on a little toy car or something. All really adorable, but that doesn't tell you how your cat is going to be kept. You might be able to pan away from that cute, adorable scene and it's gross. So I'm not saying it is, but it might be. It might be spotless. So you need to know all of these things as well. You want to see pictures of the cats in their natural environment. Videos are really great as well if they've shared videos. I don't know if you can hear that. One of my mums is feeding the kittens and they're making a bit of noise. You want to see, a really good thing to see is if they've shared pictures of their cats that have gone to new homes, and if they've shared photos of them, and if they've made comments, and if they seem proud, if they seem really happy, if that's something that's important to them. They might share some show stuff. It's really good to know that if they're showing their cats, that they're involved in our hobby, they're participating in our hobby. There's somebody that's going to be, know other people in our hobby as well, and that's all really good because we're part of a special community in the cat fancy. So definitely stalk them online and make sure that all seems good. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to ask around. There's nothing wrong with asking around. I often have people in other states in Australia contact me and say, Pamela, you're in WA, do you know this breeder? And if I do, I'll tell them, that's fine. I will not bag out another breeder though. If they ask me, if they say, I'm thinking of selling this person a cat, can you give me a little bit more information about them? What do you think of them? I'm not going to say, well, they're really gross and this, that and the other, and someone else told me that they did this with that cat then and this happened. I'm not doing that because, I might have done it before, but I try not to do that because all it takes is for that person to then screenshot that and tell the person, tell the other person what you said, and then someone else, and then it all blows up, and that happens a lot in the cat fancy, and we don't want any drama if we can afford drama. So it's best to not necessarily bag someone out. So the person that you contact, if you're asking about the breeder that's interested in a kitten from you, when you contact other people, they may not say stuff outright, but they will give you clues. And one of the ways that I often do it is they'll say, do you know this person? And I'll say, yes, I do. And if they say, I'm thinking of doing this, that and the other with them, what do you think of them? I'll be honest. I'm really honest, and I'll say things that are factual but don't have a lot of emotion attached to them. So I might say, well, I don't know them very well, and that'll be true. Or I'll say, you know, I will often say, it's not really my place to comment. And that's a very loaded answer. You know, I don't really like to talk about other breeders, I'm sorry. But if I'm pressed for an answer and somebody will say to them, well, do you think I should sell them a kitten? I will answer that question very honestly and say, I won't say whether you should sell them a kitten, but I will say one of two things there, and I'll say, oh yeah, I would sell them a kitten. Or I'll say, well, let me put it this way, I would not sell them a kitten. And that's really a really good way to indicate, and that's my personal choice, and I could be choosing that for a whole range of reasons, but I don't have to give you a reason. And I won't give you a reason, I'll just say it. But that's a really me suggesting that I know something else about this, that it might not be a good idea. So you can ask people, don't expect them to unload on you and tell you everything about this person, but just listen for the cues, and you can then use them as a way of judging whether or not they're actually saying that you should or not. Now, if you ask someone, should I sell this cat to this person, and they say to you, oh my God, yes, I love this person, they're great, that's fantastic, and you've got a third party telling you that it's really good, and if that person's someone you trust that's telling you, then that's a good indicator that you're on a good thing to sell them a kitten as well. So that's something you can do. You gather up as much information as you can, and from that information you're then going to make your decision. Then something else that's really important is that selling a breeding cat is different to selling a pet cat. This cat's going to go on to have a very different life to a pet cat. And you need to be willing to accept that life. You need to be willing to accept that cat's, I talked about this a little bit before, you need to accept that cat's not going to go and be someone's pet. That cat's going to go and have to be housed in a way that you need to house breeding cats. And that cat's going to have to interact with other cats. It's going to be one cat in a house full of many cats. It's going to have to, have matings, it's going to have to give birth, it's going to have medical things. Can you reconcile yourself with that's what you want to do, that's what you would want for this cat? And once you've thought about all those things, you need to think about, what if it went wrong? What if something went wrong and I've made the wrong decision, and this cat's gone to someone that it shouldn't have gone to? And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, a little bit of a word of warning. Please don't get freaked out by this. But I have a good friend who, when she first started breeding, she sold a cat to a breeder in another state, and the person came across as fabulous. No reason to not trust them, not think that anything was right, wrong, or the other with them. Fast forward a couple of years, and she got someone got in contact with her. They had found her cat in a hoarding situation. They'd identified the cat by its microchip. And the cat was, in an absolutely deplorable situation. So you need to reconcile yourself with the fact that you can't control what happens to this cat after it leaves you. You can't control if the person is going to keep the cat. You can't control who they're going to sell it to next, either as a pet when it's retired or as a breeding cat. And you may want it to be desexed before it's sold when it's retired, but they may choose to sell it to another person, and that person may choose to sell it to another person, and you have no control once the cat is sold. You can definitely put restrictions on them, and you've probably heard about that before. So restrictions are where you say, you can and can't do this with my cat as far as breeding goes. And those are things that you should agree up front with the person that you're selling the cat to. You can also probably heard, no fighting girls, you've also probably heard people say about contracts, and you can certainly get them to sign a contract, and that's fine, but it's not enforceable. Because to enforce it, you're going to have to take them to court or do something like that. The cost is going to outweigh any benefit you're going to get, because whatever's happened to the cat's happened to the cat. So it's not really enforceable, but it is definitely a way of clearly setting up what you want the person to do with your cat, and and what your expectations are. And it's a good idea. It's definitely a good idea. So you can do that. You can also, depending on your association, when you sell the cat, girls, come on now. When you sell the cat, you can have notes put on the pedigree that are notes that say things, for example, not to be on-sold entire, which means that it has to be desexed before it gets moved to another home. Those things can be put on by your association, but whether or not they get put on when the cat's transferred into the other person's association, whether or not those notes get transferred in as well, depends on how they do things. Whether or not anyone's ever going to say or do anything about those notes. If that person then goes to sell the cat to another breeder, whether or not that association is going to do anything about it and say yes or no is out of your control as well. Unless of course it's within your association, and then you might have something to say about it. What else have I got to tell you? You need to be really upfront about things, because you if you know about a health issue, if you know about a temperament issue, if you know about anything, be upfront about all those things. You don't want people to come back and throw that back in your face later, although they may still do that. I did sell a cat to someone, and I told them, you know, they really wanted the cat, they really wanted the cat, and that was fine. And I did say, this cat, I'll do this because it'll solve a problem for you, and that problem was that they needed an outcross. It will solve that problem for you. It'll give you some new DNA, but this cat's not a show cat, and this cat's probably, it's got an amazing temperament. It's got quite a few good qualities, but it's actually not show quality. It's a pet quality cat. And that's fine. I was very open and upfront about that. It was interesting though that, you know, fast forward a little while and I heard from someone else that they said to them that, oh no, it's not very good, it's pet quality. I was like, well, yes, I told them it was when they got it. So I'm always very upfront about things like that, and I suggest that that's a good idea as well. Never say to someone, this cat's going to win everything it shows, this cat's going to be perfect, this cat's going to be fantastic, because if something goes wrong, that's what's going to come back to bite you. And we cannot predict show quality, we cannot predict temperament, we can't predict a lot of things. We can only hope for the best. And you can say to someone, look, this cat comes from this parent and this parent. As a new breeder, you won't be able to say this, but as an experienced breeder, you will. You can say, I've done this mating before, and this is what I produced, and I was really happy with that. I've done this mating, you know, these parents before, these combinations before, or whatever, and you can say that, so I think it's likely that this is going to be good, but you can't be 100% sure. So you need to make sure you manage people's expectations, and that you don't say something that you might regret later when it doesn't turn out to be the case. And, you know, there could be problems with the cats, and that's another thing that we'll talk about now, is that you need to talk about price. So the next part is pricing. You can name your price when you're selling a breeding cat, depending on what you're selling. Now, I've been breeding for a long time. I'm a very well-established breeder. I'm quite well known. I have a pretty good show record. I think if I wanted to, my current price for my kittens is $2,500. I think if I wanted to, I could probably find someone who would buy a breeding cat for me for double that, you know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could. Let's just say I could. So if I was going to sell a breeding cat for $5,000 to someone, do you think that person would want that cat to be pretty special? Yes, they will. Now, if that cat doesn't turn out the way that they are hoping it will, are they going to be really disappointed? Yes. Are they going to be more disappointed than if they had paid the $2,500? Yes, they are. So sometimes that extra money that you can make is actually not worth it when it comes to this unknown factor of what the cat's going to turn out like. If it turns out to have a health problem, they're going to be really upset that they paid top dollar and it turned out to be a cat they couldn't breed from, or a cat that they had medical cost involved. There was another example is a really good line of cats that were winning at shows, doing really well, and everybody wanted one. Everybody wanted one, and there was quite a few went to different states in Australia, and from this line of cats, what no one could have predicted, and it's no one's fault. No one could have predicted there was a pretty bad health issue with these cats, and a lot of them didn't make it past a couple of years old and didn't reproduce. But there was probably a lot of money spent on them, and it's just a real shame. But you know, this is what happens when you choose to sell breeding cats. You need to be really aware that these are the things that can come back to haunt you afterwards. So name your price. That's completely up to you. Don't sell yourself short. Make sure that it's definitely more than the cost of your kittens. You don't want to be, you can do favours for friends, that's fine, but you don't want people to be taking advantage of you either. Make sure that it's a decent price and it reflects that this cat could have been a pet. This cat could have been loved as a pet cat. I'm not saying the person buying it isn't going to love it, but this cat's going to have a different life. And the person that's getting it needs to really value it for that. So that's what I think about pricing. And I used to say, something else I wanted to say was, I used to say all the time, oh my God, new breeders shouldn't be selling breeding cats out of their first litters. Because to me, you needed to breed a few litters and get a feel for your cats and whether they were healthy, what type they had, what they look like, those kind of things. But the cat fancy has changed. And so now I would probably say that that's not such a bad idea, as long as everybody is aware what they're getting. So as long as you say to people, I haven't done this mating before, I don't know how these kittens are going to turn out, I don't know what they're going to look like in the future, but if it's going to help you as a new breeder, yeah, sure, I can sell your breeding cat. As long as you manage those expectations, I think that's a pretty big deal. If you don't want to sell breeding cats, then don't. There's other ways that you can help contribute to to other people's breeding. Other ways that you can help them, maybe with matings and that kind of thing, leases, those sorts of things. But if you do want to sell breeding cats, just make sure you have a lot of information and make sure that you reconcile yourself with the fact that when the cat leaves you, you lose control of it. Excuse me. You lose control of it. You don't get a choice about what happens with it. I would like to think that the person that buys it from you keeps in touch, gives you updates of the cat and tells you what they're planning to do with it, lets you know when it's desexed and goes to a pet home. Oh, I've got it now. I still keep in touch with the people that have bred my cats. I still keep in touch with, for example, I have a boy that's from the Czech Republic, and I still send videos of him back to his breeder over there and tell her how proud I am of him, and I send her pictures of his babies or his grandbabies and tell her that, you know, thank you so much for sending him to me. Because none of us could breed if other people didn't sell us cats. And even though I'm someone that doesn't sell cats, I have sold some cats, yeah, we all need to help each other in that regard so that we can go forward. So sometimes helping somebody with a breeded cat, it's going to come back to you in some way, shape or form, and it's going to be a good thing. So that's a lot about breeding cats, selling breeding cats, what to do. Sorry, I'm just watching these cats play with this toy here. And while I'm here, I'm just going to grab this little one. Good example. Look at this little cutie. She is, she's not super fabulous in type, but oh my goodness, the personality on this kitten, she's crazy. She's the one that was playing with the tripod. Would I sell her to a breeding home? No, I wouldn't, because she's really cute and she deserves to go to a pet home and be loved in there. I might do it with another cat in the future, and I'm sure that'll happen, and I'm sure that I'll do more matings for people as well. But do you have anything that you would like to share and say to other new breeders? Maybe you've had a situation that didn't work out well. Maybe you've had something that you were told by a mentor. Maybe you're an established breeder and you have some some information and advice you'd like to give to new breeders. If you have something to say about that, I'd love to hear it. Comment on the comment section of this video and tell me what you think about selling breeding cats to other breeders when you're a new breeder. That's great. So that's all for me for this video. Here's the cutie. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed it, subscribe so that you'll get notified when I have new videos, and definitely hit the like button as well. I'd love to have that as well. And I've got lots of other videos that you can see with lots more information for new breeders, and hopefully I'll have some more again soon. So thanks for listening and thanks for watching, and bye.